But as always, we talk about the issue that matters the most in the country, that of course being cost of living. Now today, the current leader of the Liberal Party was exactly where he needs to be, where 88% of Australians are. Now they talk a lot about polls at the moment. The number one issue, the number one concern, the number one worry above everything else is cost of living, which is why this was the first question that the opposition leader threw at a rather cocky Prime Minister.
My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, prior to the last election, Labor promised a $275 cut to power bills on nearly 100 occasions. Since the election, you've never mentioned it. Last week, the government promised a return to industry-wide bargaining, which will mean more strikes and it will drive up the costs of living for families in our country. Why are Australian families paying the price for the Prime Minister's new priorities?
So what would the answer of the Prime Minister be? Riding high in the polls, greatest government of all time, just ask them, just the media, where you'd be able to say, look, we'll eventually get there by $275 by 2025, but he knows he can't do it. It's just something you say on the way to the election as if it's a core and non-core promise. This was how he answered a very direct question about the number one issue in the country, cost of living.
I thank the Leader of the Opposition for his questions, spraying across the range of issues because they can't decide which tactic to land on. So perhaps one of those was from the Liberal Party and one from the National Party. A bit like last week when they couldn't agree whether they should attend the Jobs and Skills Summit.
That's arrogance before your very own eyes. And look, while most of the media won't call it out, we will, because we'll hold them to their promise. The country needed to change government apparently because of the cost of living crisis, one that, of course, this government has done nothing about. Today, they made an announcement that does affect 4 million pensioners, but before you get too excited, we're talking about $20 a week. That's the sort of thing that, again, previous governments have done it. It'll be pilloried, and rightly so, as not really changing anyone's life. Of course, the big decision that comes in the next 24 hours is yet another meeting of the Reserve Bank, where most likely yet again they're going to put up interest rates. Now, remember, for the past 4 months in a row, and that is the fastest increase continually month on month in interest rates since the 1990s. That's what we're talking about, and the expectations is that it's going to go up again tomorrow.
RBA tomorrow, are you expecting 50 basis points?
I would be very surprised if they did anything else. I think it's almost universal across all economists that the expectation is for 50.
So let me put this into the attention that you already know, but for those sitting around in Canberra thinking it's all about, the opinions of whether or not CEOs can jump on the Prime Minister's private jet and isn't fantastic that we're about to ruin our economy to fix 43% of 1% of the world's carbon emissions. Here is month on month what that looks like in the real world. Now, the first one was 0.25%, then 0.5%, then 0.5%, then 0.5%. Or in real dollar terms, this was done by Channel 9 after the last month's announcement on the average mortgage of about $750,000. You now have to find an extra $708. Where do you find it? Remember, your real wages are back in 2011. So while wages are ever so slightly increasing, we got that from the Bureau of Statistics today, your spending power is back in 2011. That is the number one issue that 88% of Australians are worried about, yet the Prime Minister, I'll just win question time by not answering. Yet again, tomorrow, the expectation is that that's going to get worse. And in this month, something that's going to hit a lot of people between the eyes, which is the end of the holiday when it comes to the fuel excise. Remember, in the federal budget earlier this year, 22 cents a litre was the drop. Now, if you're somebody who just putts around every now and then, okay. But if you're somebody who, God forbid, is a professional driver, or just somebody who has to get up way too early, squint while you go onto a motorway to pay for a toll, to sit and do 0 kilometres an hour in a 100 kilometre speed zone, then you know that the cost of petrol matters. The expectations here is $15 per 60-litre tank. So your mortgage is going to cost more while your house is worth less. If you get a pay rise, the dollar that you earn will only buy you things back in 2011. Accountability doesn't exist anywhere. It does on this program, and that's why you're in the front row each and every night for the conversation that matters.